Canistracci here. Yes, I'm back. And I'm not by myself. You're on my left side.
Yeah.
Or it's the right side.
Oh, yeah! Wadzilla's here, baby.
Yeah, Mr. Ian Wadley, a.k.a. Wadzilla. A lot of the members of the RMCP Army, of course, know you. You're one of the Pod Kings, co-host of the Rock and Metal Combat podcast, along with the great Ralph Viera. But to a few people that come to my channel and watch my videos, or just some Prince fans that have stumbled on this video that don't know who Ian Wadley is, this man's a fucking podcast, rock and roll legend. You gotta check out the Rock and Metal Combat podcast. On your last episode, which you had on YouTube, and I'll leave a link down below, as our brother Mick Watkins always says, down below, you'll find that link. You got into a debate with your co-host, Ralph Viera, about, let's just say, two artists that you would think would never really be even compared to, but Manowar, the heavy metal band Manowar, and Prince. And it kind of became like a big debate because, like, you hate Manowar and he hates Prince, and right. You love Prince and he loves Manowar. So you guys kind of got into it. Although I will say one thing, I noticed, and I've noticed this for a while, whenever Ralph digs on Prince, where it's like Ralph makes his case for Manowar, but I noticed, like, you don't really engage, like, you just kind of chuckle or roll your eyes, or like you don't really like get in there and start defending Prince. I always wondered why, and I figured this is a chance for you to say why.
Well, I don't feel like I need to defend Prince.
I guess I think you think like he's enough of a legend, has got.
Yeah, I mean, Prince is, he's Prince. He's fucking Prince. It's like, what am I gonna say? You either get Prince or you don't. So it doesn't bother me, and I've been a Prince fan for almost my entire life. So I'm used to people digging at Prince and shit like that, and it doesn't matter to me. I'm like, okay, you don't get it, fine. I'm going to listen to His Royal Badness and enjoy the piss out of it. Prince has always been an innovator and a vampire at the same time. And a lot of people would refer to David Bowie like that, Yeah. They would say how much he would borrow from different scenes and stuff and regurgitate it, and some people that made angry. But I think good artists do that. They have their own stamp, but they hear everything else that's going on, and it all filters through them. And to me, Prince, Bowie, a lot of the great artists have done that. I put Prince with, like, and I know they sound nothing alike, but like Frank Zappa, Neil Young, artists that have varied categories or catalogs that go all over the place. And it's where they're at the time. And when they get bored, they take a turn and they go over here, and the way they interpret what's popular and do whatever. And I find it very fascinating and satisfying as a listener, because even when they get into an era that I'm not necessarily, I get it the first time I listen to it, it's something I can come back later to and get into.
Also, the thing about Prince, and I don't want to turn this into a whole Prince versus Michael Jackson thing. I think he's less dated than Michael Jackson, personally, especially an album like this that we're getting, Dirty Mind. To me, Dirty Mind feels very now, from everything from like lo-fi, like do-it-yourself indie rock, to like retro synth pop and a lot of R&B. And I know artists like The Weeknd and Kid Cudi. And I hear a lot of the minimalism. That's the thing, because Prince was far more minimalistic than Michael Jackson, especially with this. And you have later like songs like Kiss and stuff, that kind of minimalistic approach. I would hear like stuff like, remember like Daft Punk and stuff. Like I hear a lot of that coming from Prince. To me, Prince was both kind of creating the 80s with this album, like helping to define the sound of the 80s, emerging new wave and funk. But at the same time, he was kind of giving us a roadmap to what music would sound like in like the post-digital age.
My analogy would be, and I love Michael Jackson. Huge Michael Jackson fan. Michael Jackson is an entertainer. Prince is an artist. I feel the same way. I know a lot of people hate this, and I think you are an Elvis fan. I am not an Elvis fan. I think Elvis is an incredible entertainer. But to me, he's not an artist. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, those are artists. There's people who can song and dance, and then there's people who just have the music in them, and they write it, and they do it. They do everything they can to get out of it.
I think that's a good analogy. And I mean,
Yeah,
Michael Jackson even had an Elvis complex, so that he himself saw.
Oh, yeah. And Elvis, hey, dude, great looking guy, great voice. Could carry a fucking tune, but can he write a fucking song? Where Prince, Prince is a fucking musician. First and foremost, a great songwriter, a great singer. I mean, it's everything. Look at his output. I mean, in the older days, you would see a much larger output and faster than you do in the modern era. But even look at somebody like James Brown, who had like 60, 70 fucking albums, like studio albums. But he's singing shit and he's dancing. He's got an incredible band behind him. Prince is all of that. Prince is the band behind it, the songwriter, the singer, all of fucking that.
Dirty Mind is it was a critically acclaimed album. It's really well thought of. And I know it's very popular fans, and it is my favorite. But it sounds like you don't love it quite as much as me, although I'm sure you like Dirty Mind, maybe even love it, but it sounds like it's not like a top 5 Prince album for you. So where would you put Dirty Mind in the scale of your favorite Prince albums? Where does Dirty Mind fall?
I do love this album, and it's symbolic of a change for Prince, and I love that. I love Prince into tears, in his career. And to me, the first era is, of course, For You through Controversy. And then you got 1999 through Parade, which, to me, even though 1999 is not credited to the revolution, but it's the genesis of the revolution in my mind. But no, I love it. Would it be in my top 5? And what I call like his first era, the first 4, this one through Controversy. My favorite out of those 4 would be the self-titled second album, Prince. I love that one, but this album's very unique. The way he molds like new wave in with his sound, more guitars, the minimalist production of this album, which he recorded in his basement on the shores of Lake Minnetonka, motherfuckers. If you know, you know. This is the only Prince album not to include piano because he couldn't get a piano in the motherfucking basement where he recorded it. But you see a transition. You see him adapting from a straight up R&B, which I wouldn't call, the self-titled second album straight up R&B, because you have something like Bambi on it, which definitely has a rock influence, but definitely kind of a, no pun intended, sign of the times. And you hear some more post-punk, early new wave in this shit that you didn't hear on the first 2 albums.
Oh, yeah, definitely more so in this album, definitely.
Yeah, so I dig it. I do like this one more than Controversy. I mean, fuck, I love all Prince albums. Even the ones that are like on my lesser tier, there's always that one song where I'm like, okay, all right. There's a lot of gems on this one, but to me it is like baby step era Prince. But it's important, to get him to where it's the Prince that I know and love. But this is a big step forward. Like, okay, you're not just an R&B artist. You're going to do fucking whatever. And think about this shit. When he record this shit, he was 22 years old. 22 years old when this shit came out. But still, this motherfucker was on Saturday Night Live to promote this album. He was also opening up for Rick James.
That's where they became rivals, because I think Prince was actually overshadowing him as an opening act.
But I mean, think, it's only like, 2 years before this. This is, at that time, a 20-year-old who's playing every instrument on his album, an unproven artist who turned down, I don't know if you know this or not, but Warner Brothers wanted Maurice Starr from Earth, Wind, and Fire to produce his first album. And he's like, no, I'm doing it all myself. Either you let me do it or I'm not going to sign with you.
Like Paul McCartney, like Stevie Wonder, 2 other artists that I think are similar to Prince in that sense. I mean, they're virtuosos.
And that's how Prince is. He can do all of this shit. Is there certain eras where he was surrounded by musicians that brought out the best and it made his music better to include other people? I do agree. I think with the Revolution, is the pinnacle for me.
Even though this is my favorite album, I do think objectively, there's definitely a case that Purple Rain and Parade and Sign at Times, which still has Hangover, recorded with Wendy and Lisa. There's definitely a case that the mid-'80s is objectively his pinnacle as an artist. I do think Wendy and Lisa had an influence.
But I think there's other people behind the scenes that should be credited that most people probably don't know, like Claire Fisher and Eric Leeds. There's other people behind there that had a lot of influence on him.
And Dr. Fink a little, actually.
I wouldn't even say a little. Dr. Fink a lot.
I think he brings in that Devo new wave influence.
Oh, yeah. To me, you truly don't get that Minneapolis sound without Dr. Fink. I think overall, out of the Revolution, Dr. Fink appears on the most Prince albums overall.
Yeah, he hanged in there the longest.
Yeah, even after the disillusionment of the Revolution, Dr. Fink was still there in and out because he knew what he brought to the table.
I prefer the 80s synthesizers. I like the classic Minneapolis sound with the synthesizers, which really begins on this album. You get a little bit of it on the self-titled one, but especially on this album, where the keyboards are, in addition to kind of having a new wave influence, they're, because of the funk influence and the James Brown influence, they're kind of used the way horns would be used traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of create a wall of brass and funkiness.
Especially like on Uptown, for sure.
A great example. Yeah, he's using them like horns. And then obviously with the new power generation, he suddenly became anti-synth. He saw that as like kind of 80s and dated, and suddenly got the horns. And there was great stuff. I mean, I love Sexy MF and all that stuff. And it's cool to hear him actually doing James Brown type music. Like, I love Musicology. It's like actually one of my favorite later Prince albums and songs.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, I still think actually the synth stuff is kind of still a little fresher to hear. Like when you listen to a lot of modern pop and R&B and stuff, like the horn shit's good. It's actually great, but he didn't really better Stevie Wonder or James Brown or Marvin Gaye. The synths, it's with the synth work that I feel like he did something else. Like he transcended influences and created something new, a very specific sound, which I don't know if he ever really entirely reconciled that when he got older. Maybe he would have if he had lived by this point. Maybe he would have realized that, hey, kind of the shit I was doing with the synthesizers, me and Dr. Fink, what we were doing was like really fresh and innovative. And that's why I think it segues into this album, especially because that's like the big mission statement with this album was, it's like me in a basement with a synthesizer and a drum machine and a guitar and a bass. And it's a different way of recording. Whereas with the other album, the self-titled album, he was, even though he was doing it in his own way, and there's, with the singing of the falsetto and some of the guitar licks and Bambi and stuff, I still feel like he was following kind of that chic late 70s form.
Oh, definitely.
Where he does make a break. So even though you can consider this the first wave, there's like subgroups within the group, No. Like the
I agree.
Two albums, and then This and Controversy are like the next step after that, the first step. There's definitely a beginning of something new with this album. I think if I recall reading, this originally was literally demos. I don't think he was intentionally planning for a lot of these versions of the songs to be the finished.
Well, there was a problem. There was a money problem. By the time he did the demos for this, he pretty much had ate up through the money he had from Warner Brothers. He just turned it over and they're like, okay, because he couldn't expand upon it. But he knew he had to keep building on his career because, the first two albums, as much as I love them, they didn't make the impact that this did. I mean, this is the one where he truly made an impact on the charts and sales-wise and everything.
Yeah, and the critics, it kind of made him definitely break away from all the other R&B artists.
Yeah.
And it made him seem like a fresh new artist for the 80s. And even like in the image, to me, it's iconic. I mean, it's over the top, and I could see why people would make fun of it. But at the same time, I don't really see how it's any different than what Mick Jagger was doing, or how like even like Angus in the schoolboy uniform. This kind of like Prince with the Speedo, what's right behind you right now. Prince in the Speedo, the bandana, and the trench coat. That's a very powerful image, and he was very mindful of it because in all the promotional videos, live, the album cover posters, it's like kind of, again, like David Bowie with like the thin white Duke and the different personas. Like this was like Dirty Mind look. He had a very specific look with this album as well. So it was more than just the music, which was amazing and innovative. There was this whole new look, and it is the first time you really kind of, even though they're not really a band, not in the studio sense, but they were live, you're starting to see the revolution, like a prototype.
Oh, yeah.
And you're seeing Lisa Coleman joins the band live, and she does appear in a song that we'll talk a lot about. Yeah, and Dr. Fink has he co-writes the title track. So you're kind of seeing 80s Prince. Like, I kind of think of Self-Titled is like the end of the 70s, and this is definitely Prince stepping into, it's like, yeah, here's the 80s, and he's helping.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's setting a new identity, and it's a way to stick out. Like, I'm not only trying to appeal to this genre, but this genre too. And back then, I mean, this shit was shocking. It was a way to get attention. He's trying to mix everything. You know, like, here's a new style of songwriting, here's a new style of this, and I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm all this. It gets attention.
He just didn't want to be in a box. You know, that's the thing. He didn't want to be in a straight or gay box. Didn't want to be in white, black box. He didn't want to be in an R&B or rock box. He just wanted to have no limitations whatsoever. Both in terms
want people to pay attention.
Yeah, you know? and I think it also, I think there's that. He knew it was a good way to get attention while he was breaking in. But I do also think it was an expression of himself being an eclectic person. And of course, he would years later play into this whole idea that he's a Gemini, he's straight. But I do think there is a genuine feminine quality that is in his, that's why the symbol was a combination of the male and female sign. I think he was always intrigued by this idea because he felt, a lot of creative people have that side where they're kind of attuned to both their masculine and feminine side. It's not necessarily even about sexuality, it's more about identity. Miles Davis, to me, said the perfect thing about Prince in terms of his image. Miles Davis in the late 80s said Prince was like the pimp and the hoe combined. I think this is really, you get a little bit of it on the self-titled album, but here it's like he really is kind of becoming both a pimp and a hoe. One second he's screwing a girl's brains out, the next second he's like a cuck, while some other guy's fucking his girl. He's like kind of across the board. He's like committing incest. He's having like virgins give him head. It's all over the place. And I still think some of the shit in terms of like the pop world, some of these lyrics would still be kind of controversial. I think a lot like the Rolling Stones. I think if half the people knew what Mick Jagger was saying, he'd be canceled like 100 times over, it's like they just don't understand him. There's some really, I could say, we'll get to it while we get to the songs, but it is a dirty album. And that's what I love about it. It's Dirty Mind, and it's not like a cheat. Like, there's a lot of like cheesy 80s albums that play on the idea that, ooh, they're nasty or they're dirty, but they're not really dirty. This actually gets dirty at times. The reason why I always loved this album, since I had the cassette of it after I got into Prince post-Batman. Because of Batman, I had the cassette. And I think within a year or so, I had bought pretty much every Prince album that led up to Batman. And this was one of them. This was always one I always loved. This was always up there. And I think it's because of the minimalism of it, and it just had an edge. Even though it's mainly, I would say, like new wave and funk, it has a rock edge to it because it's so raw and off the cuff, and it's kind of dirty sounding too. It's kind of grimy, even though it's like synthesizers in a drum.
It sounds like it was recorded in a basement by Lake Minnetonka.
Exactly. Something about that, always connected with me, and still to this day. And, I was just playing the vinyl earlier, the copy back there, if you can see it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, as soon as that fake drum thing comes on, and the thumping synth sound, and then Dr. Fink's keyboard line, and it just instantly you feel like you're down in the basement and conjuring something up. I just fucking love it. And yeah, let's get into this with the first track, Dirty Mind. Yeah, he co-wrote it with Dr. Fink. Dr. Fink did come up that main keyboard hook. So, and what do you think of this song, the title track, Dirty Mind?
Let's see. Well, let me look at my notes that I wrote when I was sober. Definite new wave vibe on this, coming off the first two albums. Dr. Fink on full display. I love this song. It's like you listen to it. It didn't even have to be called Dirty Mind. It didn't have to be that album cover, but you knew you were listening to something you probably shouldn't, as like a 10 or 11-year-old. I dig it. And I love seeing the jump in the style. Like, I'm not going to be pigeonholed, I'm not just going to be an R&B artist. I'm not going to be this. I'm going to do whatever. Dirty Mind is something totally new. There's nothing on the first two that sound like this. So to me, this is a new era, even though I included on an era that I call, the first four. But no, man, I fucking dig this one. I'll take the next fucking song. When You Were Mine. Oh, God damn, do I love this fucking song. But I have an interesting history with this one because the first time I heard this was not Prince. It was not Cyndi Lauper. It was the Mitch Ryder version of this. He recorded a version of this that was used in the movie Hot Dog, which was an 80s sexploitation kind of comedy. It's not just called Hot Dog, it's Hot Dog the Movie. Interesting fact, though, too. The version of When You Were Mine by Mitch Ryder, that was considered a comeback album and was produced by John Mellencamp. But another popular version was released in 1984 by Cyndi Lauper, which was on her So Unusual.
That might be the most known version, only because that was her biggest album, and I think that was a single too.
Yeah, it was like one of the later singles, and I know she performed it on the American Music Awards or some shit like that. But yeah, Mitch Ryder was the first time I heard this, but going back now, of course, I want to hear the Prince version. It shows you his craft for songwriting. Look at the variety of artists who cover this, and they've all done a great job. It's a catchy rock song, and it shows that he could do all kinds of different shit.
Yeah, I would say new wave, you get the guitar, and actually this is a good opportunity to talk about the Telecaster sound he has on this album, because I think it's something that really distinguishes this. I mean, there is a very specific, if you know what I'm talking about, like Dirty Mind Telecaster guitar sound. It's the clean electric. He's going for this kind of new wavy, clean electric sound. And it's different than how he would sound later on, or even on the last album, like Bambi, where it was all fuzzed out and kind of rocked out and distorted, where he's going for this kind of very thin sounding, trebly, new wavy sound. I love this song. It's one of my favorite Prince songs. It is a song where he's kind of a cuck on the song, if you listen to the lyrics. But, Prince is like one of the few guys that can almost make it sound cool. It's like almost cool that you're letting a dude fuck your lady in front of you. But it's great. I love the guitar sound. It's one of his greatest songs. I think most people would say this is one of his greatest songs. I would say it's maybe my third or fourth favorite song on the album. What do you think of the next song, though, where we get back to down and dirty, sexy, funky Prince? Do It All Night.
I love Do It All Night. Do It All Night is like funk wave. You know what I mean? It's like new wave, but it's funky too. I love the falsetto on this shit too.
Yeah.
And to me, it's primitive, but so effective. And the funny thing, I put in my notes, I put, back then there was no wet ass pussy, okay? So this was like pretty sexual for its time, the whole do it all night and shit like that. There wasn't a lot of that. That was this explicit and this like sexual.
I love that keyboard riff. It's really funky, which is Prince. Dr. Fink actually only plays keyboard twice on this album. He does the Dirty Mind riff, the main Dirty Mind, and he does the solo on Head. That really funky kind of P-funk kind of solo, which is great. But everything else, every other synthesizer, including the hook here, and it's a great hook, is Prince. And he's, of course, like we said, he's playing all the drums, he's playing all the bass, and he's playing all the guitar. And he's doing all the vocals, with the exception of one guest appearance from a lady later on. Yeah, Do It All Night has a funky, it kind of reminds me, and we'll talk a little more about this, especially when we get to the last track, but you hear a little bit of the beginning of the time, I think, in this song. I can hear this being a time song. And this is what he opened the Dirty Mind shows with.
They say it doesn't have like a slow jam. This, like, the one Prince album doesn't have the slow jam.
Yeah, I think that's to me, I'm like,
yeah. To me, I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is like teenage love problems kind of thing. But I think it's just sexy Prince to me. I love it. I don't think it's a standout track, but I still think it's a good track. I dig it. I like it. What do you think?
Got a Broken Heart Again. Yeah, it's fun because when I read that on the Wikipedia page that there was no slow jam, I was like, well, what do you call Got a Broken Heart Again?
Yeah, thank you.
I think maybe because they consider it a full-out ballad, and maybe that's the difference. I don't know. I think they're being racist. Yeah, Wikipedia racist. Because to me, a slow jam is just a fucking ballad for R&B,
Right.
It's a love song. It's a fucking love song.
Well, I knew it was racist when they described the song as well spoken.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Very
terrible.
well spoken.
To me, yeah. Like, what separates this from the fucking slow jams? To me, this is the one. You know, this is a backwards couple skate kind of song. It's got that teenage love kind of thing going on.
I can picture like the Isley brothers doing this song. Like they had songs
Yeah.
with prominent guitar. So I mean, just because the guitar is like the lead instrument, I don't think that doesn't make it a slow jam R&B song.
Yeah, I agree.
I think So we agree. Wikipedia is racist. So there you go.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's a thin sounding Telecaster, they think that's white boy shit. And
exactly.
But it's being played by Prince, so it ain't white boy shit. Got a Broken Heart, if I had to pick a least favorite song, yeah, this is my least favorite song. Like, I don't get excited, like, go, ooh, I'm going to go listen to Got a Broken Heart. But I really like it a lot. It's the only song I would say I like and don't love, but I do like it a lot. And I think in terms of placement, like, it's an album track. Like, yeah, after the first three songs, you want to take it easy a little bit, especially considering what's coming up on the next side. Yeah. Like this is the foreplay a little bit. Like we're taking it easy. We're lighting some candles. We're gonna get a little nice with our lady before we're gonna really be pulling back her hair and getting really fucking kinky. Flip this record over.
Oh my God, we flipped this over with my favorite track on the whole fucking album. This is the one, to me, this is what sums up this fucking album. And there's songs on here that are more like notorious and, you know, more attention grabbers. But to me, this album is all about Uptown. Holy shit, do I love this fucking song. What did I put on here? Epic Jam, best track on the album. That Minneapolis sound. I mean, all of this shit is on this. And around this time, he's opened up for Rick James, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, did Prince get this from Rick James or did Rick James get this kind of shit from Prince? Because if you kind of listen to both of these artists at that same time, it's like, I don't know, I love both. I love Mr. Rick fucking James.
I think they're kind of like two dogs that are kind of sniffing around each other.
Yeah,
alphas, you know.
You know, it's like, hey, I love Prince, but goddamn, Rick James wrote Party All the Time.
You know, at this point, I love that song actually. But
I did too. Yeah, it's a great fucking song.
I will say this, and I said this, you know, the Rick James episode of the Rock Over Your podcast. Shout out to that, Eric Jordan, RMCP. But on that episode, I said in '81, in the early '80s, Rick James was competitive with Prince. They were like neck and neck. Now, obviously, by the time you got to the mid '80s, Prince left Rick James in the dust. Like, from a creative standpoint and a commercial standpoint. But at this period, you know, Street Songs, you know.
But Street Songs is still like, if I remember correctly, Street Songs, was that 82 or 81?
It's 81. It's the same time as Controversy. Dirty Mind and Street Songs are kind of neck and neck for me. I love both these albums, but I do think Street Songs is stronger than Controversy. A little more consistent, the songs. And
I would agree.
It's also bringing in like kind of a new wave element, especially with Super Freak, which to me is very new. So Rick James was competitive at this point. Rick James and Prince felt like they were competitors. Like they were the top two motherfuckers at that point in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Prince definitely eclipsed them, but I mean, Rick James no fucking slouch either.
Oh, he's no fucking slouch. And in the early 80s, and what a time to have been alive. Could you only imagine?
To see that tour? These two motherfuckers?
These two motherfuckers then.
Oh, do you know how many illegitimate children were born from that tour?
Oh, my God.
Good fucking God.
Yeah, in Uptown, you're totally right about that. And yeah, this is something that I can hear Rick James or Prince doing this song. You know, it has that vibe. I would say this, of all the songs, even though it's still very raw and does have that Dirty Mind sound, it's definitely the most, I would say, fleshed out sounding of all the songs.
Oh, definitely.
No doubt. I mean, it's no surprise it was the lead-off single. I would say it's my second favorite, but it's a very...
Wow.
Very strong second. Very strong second. I love it. It's one of my favorite songs. It just kicks in.
Is your first coming up, or did we already talk about it?
Coming up.
Okay.
Very soon.
All right.
Very soon.
All right.
But this is, to me, it's like a 1-2 punch of my 2 favorite songs. You know, this is all Prince. It's all fucking Prince. A drum fill in the beginning, and then that keyboard line. It's so funky, and the bass guitar. All fucking Prince. I love how it kind of subtly like rocks out hard during the chorus, if you know what I mean. Like it's just like that guitar kind of comes in, and this is like master production in my opinion. Even though it's lo-fi, the way Prince kind of subtly brings in the guitar, and it just gets you all charged up sounding, and it just makes you want to run around, you know, with the people uptown and like, you know, get your freak on, and where buddies accept it, and it's all cool. This is back when, all I want to say, I don't want to get political, but this is back when progressiveness was funky and cool and had sexuality to it, and it wasn't like a bunch of like cat ladies clutching their pearls. You know what I mean? This is when it was sexy. Like, you know, yeah, you if you went into the wrong part of town, you might have to face assholes and bigots and stuff. But this is where those people would get together, and it'd be cool and funky and punk rock and new wave and funk all at the same time, and it was exciting. Kind of what like the Danceteria scene was like in New York in the early 80s. This is kind of describing that kind of scene in Minneapolis. Uptown Minneapolis, where all the cool people are. It just gives you that feeling. It's like that exciting.
Yeah, this is back when a furry would kick your ass. Nowadays, a furry will just turn you into HR.
It's euphoric. It's a euphoric song.
I concur.
It's awesome. And then I'm taking the next song because obviously I foreshadowed this. This is my favorite track, Head. Yes, it is one of the controversial songs, but it's not just because of the dirty lyrics, although I do love these dirty lyrics. But man, you talk about the funk. This is one of the nastiest, funkiest riffs and grooves Prince ever had, in my opinion. This is straight up. It's just in the way it comes in after Uptown. This is a funky 1-2 punch. And this is the peak of the album, is these 2 songs. And man, it just comes in, that groove. It's like I cannot listen to Head without grooving. And the drum beat, the bass, the guitar, keyboards, again, all Prince except for that awesome solo courtesy of Dr. Fink. It's one of the dirtiest, coolest grooves ever. Like this is where Prince shows he can be as funky as James Brown and George Clinton with this song. Mm-hmm. This is that level of deep funk. What I would call hard funk, like the way AC/DC is hard rock. This is hard funk. This ain't for posers. This is for real funketeers, you know? And the lyrics, I love it. It's great smut. You know, he sees a virgin. She's about to get married, but he's such a hunk, so full of spunk. I think I'll give you head. And of course, it's Lisa's premiere on a studio album. She doesn't play keyboard on this album, but she does provide, she is the sexy sounding lady, is Lisa Coleman, later of Wendy and Lisa fame. Lisa had just joined the band as a second keyboardist, and Lisa was up for it. Lisa's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll sing these lyrics. You know, we'll speak these lyrics. Spoken word, I guess you'd say it's spoken word. Yeah, she nails it. And I think as we get deeper into the mid-'80s, another part of the classic Prince sound, I do think once you start getting into that era of Wendy, Lisa, Wendy's twin sisters, and Sheila E., the 4 of them especially, like on a song like Girls and Boys, that starts to be a pretty distinct part of Prince's sound, is this sexy female backing vocal sound. And even though this is not like a full-fledged, like she's not singing, it's kind of the first time you're getting kind of a little tidbit of that, a little touch of the way that Prince is going to integrate sexy female vocals into one of his songs. This foreshadows like Erotic City and him and Sheila E. on that song. And I love that. I just love how all those incredibly sexy, cool women sounded when singing with Prince. I love that sound. These ladies, in the way they just balanced out Prince's voice, it was some fucking sexy shit. And it kind of begins here with Head. Head's awesome. It's a fucking funk masterpiece. It's one of my favorite Prince songs of all time. Probably a top 5 Prince song for me. I'm very into Head. So what do you think of Head, Ian Wadley?
Oh, I fucking concur, man. I love that shit. I love getting my cock sucked. I love listening to the song. I mean, god damn it. You know, Van Halen, David Lee Roth, like, she looks so fucking good. You know, to hear that, you're like, it's like freedom, you know, and all this shit all at once. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is how we talk. This is what we do. But you're actually hearing a song here, you know, like, yeah, people get their dick sucked since the fucking Roman ages, but now we're talking about it. That's the thing at this time, 1980. I mean, Jesus Christ, you know, this was fucking revolutionary.
Yeah, you know,
awesome.
The idea too, if you listen to the narrative of the song, I was kind of paying attention to it today. Okay, so she's a virgin. There's something sexy about this idea of this girl. She's saving herself, but she sucks his dick. So it's like, okay, you can't have sex with me. You can't enter my vagina, but I'll give you head because I can't help myself. You're just too much of a stud. So I like that as a theme. But then if you get to the last verse, she decides, fuck it, I'm marrying you. He marries him instead. So then he is going to fuck her on her wedding day. So this is kind of the flip side. I'm saying like Prince might have been a cuck on When You Were Mine, but now it's the opposite. He's gone full circle. Yeah. Now he's making another guy a cuck, and now he's taking a woman that was going to be betrothed to another man and making her give him head. And then she marries him afterwards. That's even sexier in a way when you think about it. Speaking of taboos, then we get to, I would say probably the dirtiest, just wrong, it's just wrong, song that Prince ever wrote. And I love it. It's 1 minute and 31 seconds. Short, too. Sister. Okay, I guess, this is the big one. This is the incest song. So what do you think of Sister, Ian Wadley?
I dig it. It's not my favorite. It is what it is. It's punky. It's antagonistic in nature. I mean, this song is written to, like, provoke.
Yeah.
And it does that. Is it a well-written song? Is it, like, the best-written song Prince ever did? No. You know, it's kind of stupid and silly in a way, but I love the balls. Like, he's just put his balls on the table, like, I'm going to do this. And I love how he's mixing musical genres. You know, this is totally out of anything that Prince has released so far. He's talking about incest. It's got a punky vibe, even though, like, you know, punk purists will be like, oh, that's not punk, but, like, I'll be like, hey, neither is Green Day. It's got that attitude like, fuck you, I'm going to throw this out in front of your face. Back in the early 80s, this was some weird shit.
I love this song. I think it's great. It's obviously, it's not one of the best songs on the album. It does sound like something he knocked off really fast and did right just to provoke, but it's kind of fitting that it is punky because punk itself is about provoking. And like you could hear this being like a Sex Pistols song. Like even though it does have that kind of clean sounding, more new wavy guitar, but the speed, the energy, and the snotty, provocative lyrics is definitely kind of punk in nature. And this is like where I think like Head is a more genuine sexuality that we would hear Prince express himself again and again throughout the 80s and even into the 90s and onward. But Sister's like, you would never really hear a song like Sister before or after. Like this is just a clickbait kind of song, like, hey, oh, look, I'm doing something really naughty. But it's fun. It's like in the moment, it sounds like something he knocked off really quick. I love the guitar work. Like he's doing a lot of really quick, speedy, fun guitar playing on it. And I just love, it's like you said, the genre hopping. And I love the sequencing. The best thing about it is just, I love it how it segues between Head and Party Up. And it reminds me a little of like, later in the early 90s, like the Beastie Boys, with like Check Your Head and Ill Communication, where suddenly they have like a tough guy, like a really quick hardcore song in between two hip-hop tracks. Like it has a little bit of that vibe. Like, oh, we get a little shot of something else, a little rockin' shot between the two really funky songs. I love it, especially as an album track in that way. And it's like, I love that it just gets in and out of town really quick. It's like an early Black Flag song in that way, you know, like Wasted, you know, like Keith Morris Wasted. It's just like in and out, boom. We flipped you the bird. Aren't we naughty? Now let's get to the real next song.
The Arkansas boys, where are they coming home?
Yeah.
They're coming home.
And I love it. It's like the mixtape aesthetic. And I love that. And this album has a touch of that to it. He would, again, get into this like in the mid-'80s with Sign of the Times, where like the White Album, a lot of genre hopping. There's this kind of song, then this kind of song. And I love that. And I know you love that too. We're open-minded. We love all kinds of music. So if it's an artist that kind of come in and it's like a full meal, you know? You're getting like a full course meal with all the fixins. And now we're going to get to...
this song would be the Hush Puppies.
Yeah, it's like the little hush puppies on the side. Yeah. Little hush puppies.
It's an appetizer.
Yeah, it's because people got to whisper things like a disease. You whisper. He's having fun. It's awesome. Party up. What do you think, Ian Wadley, of the big funk epic finale at 4 minutes and 24 seconds? What do you think of Party Up?
I like Party Up. This is one that was primarily written by Morris Day, and there's been much debate about who played what on this. Is it Morris Day playing this shit? Is it Prince playing this shit? I would definitely go towards Morris Day wrote it. musically, and he said he doesn't like what Prince did to it. He didn't like how Prince gave it the like rock funk vibe. His was more of like a funky, straight up R&B like funk type vibe. But it is what it is. I mean, I dig it, love it. It's classic. This is the one he played on Saturday Night Live in 1981 when he was promoting this. And this is the funny thing, because that's a very infamous episode of Saturday Night Live, because Charles Rocket said fuck and got fired on that episode. But Prince also said fucking in the song. So it's like, and Prince went first. So it's like, well, Prince said it, but didn't get no repercussions. But Charles Rocket said fuck later in the episode and got fired. I like Party Up. It's a good song, but to me, it pales compared to Uptown. It's like Uptown Light. But I do dig it. Prince totally like changed the lyrics and everything from what Morris did. Kind of a neat thing that might fall on a lot of deaf ears nowadays. But when he wrote this was at the tail end of Jimmy Carter's presidency, and Jimmy Carter reinstated the draft. Not so much you were going to war, but you had to sign up for selective service again. And that was a thing that had been taken away after Vietnam, but then it was brought back. So at the tail end, when you hear this shit about, fight your war and all that shit, it was actually very topical, because all of a sudden now young kids had to register for the fucking draft.
Yeah, I didn't. I was reading that too, and it's interesting because I didn't remember that. Obviously, I was alive then, but I was too young, and obviously I wasn't going to get drafted at that point. So I didn't even know that the draft was reinstated. I always just assumed it was just kind of a general anti-Cold War statement before reading that. Because in later songs, like Ronnie Talk to Russia, and also in 1999, there is this motif, like everyone in the 80s was worried about nuclear war and the Cold War. So I always just took it that it was just like an anti-Cold War statement. But yeah, but then I read the same thing today, and I was just like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Party Up, it's a good song. I dig it. I love it. But to me, it's Uptown Light. I'd much rather hear Uptown.
I definitely like it more than you. I mean, yeah, it's no Uptown, but I do think it's a great song. I'd say it's like a mid-tier song, but a mid-tier song on this album is still a great song. It's very funky. I mean, I don't know about, it's definitely Prince playing. I could tell it's Prince playing. But yeah, Morris Day wrote the main beat, rhythm and stuff. For whatever reason, he's a little sour on it. I mean, to me, it doesn't sound that new wavy funk rock as he's describing it. To me, it's a pretty straight up funk song. So it sounds like it fit right in on a Times, the Time album, the first album actually. And this is really kind of beginning of the time. Like, this is literally the beginning of the time.
And he said that. I think when Prince took this, he told Morris Day. He said, look, okay, I'm going to use this. I made it a song. I can give you $10,000 or I could sign you to a record contract. And Morris took the fucking record contract. And for those of you who don't know, the first 3 Time records were like 99% all written and performed by Prince, with Morris doing the vocals.
He does some drums too, I think, but that's it.
Yeah, but that's why I said 99.
Yeah.
Very, very minimal, like, people who were in the time that are like nowadays considered very influential, like, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Yeah.
Jelly Bean Johnson.
Didn't actually on the records, those early records.
Right, exactly. What's funny is the last time we had to take a break, I was listening to My Drawers off of Ice Cream Castles.
I love that song.
God damn, do I love that song.
I love that song. I love the Time. I think they're great.
Oh, that shit's so good. I'll never forget my mom.
Man.
I had my mom buy me Ice Cream Castles on cassette when it came out in '84, and I'm listening to it, and I'm trying to like digest it, and I asked my mom, and I'll never forget this because we're just taking a ride in the car, and I was like, the name of the song is "If the Kid Can't Make You Come." What does that mean? And she just looked at me like horrified, like, I don't know, just listen to the goddamn song,
Morris Day is one of the great performers, in my opinion. He's like a lot like the Black David Lee Roth in a lot of ways, He's just got
dude, that is amazing analogy. That is an amazing analogy that I've never heard or thought of before. But yeah, Morris Day is the Black David Lee Roth.
He's
with freckles.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
professor that should be respected more. Yeah, he was great. I love him, and he even had a manservant, Jerome. How cool is that? I'm a
Morris
huge.
doesn't like it, and I don't like it either.
I love. I mean, we'll have to do like just episodes sometime, just talking about the time maybe. But I'm a huge.
We got to do an episode where we talk with Jerome. We got to find Jerome and do a fucking interview.
Oh yeah, we find him somewhere.
We got to find Jerome and do a fucking interview.
Yeah, because he was both Morris Day's and Prince's manservant.
Yeah, I mean, anybody seen Under the Cherry Moon?
Yeah, he was doing that for
Jerome like a motherfucker.
That's what was great. That's when it revealed that Prince himself, that the Morris Day persona, some of that kind of came from Prince himself. Like it just goes back to that Davis quote, "The pimp and the hoe." Prince has a pimp side.
Oh yeah. Oh, especially. You ever listen to, did you ever get Crystal Ball?
Of course.
What's that song like? Bacon? Yeah, the Bacon Grease or whatever the song is.
Which is actually Morris Day playing drums on. But Prince is doing the Morris Day persona.
Right.
You also hear it in that, that original version, also on that collection, Movie Star.
Yep.
Movie Star, that's all Prince. But
God damn, you're Prince. I love that, man. I don't talk to a lot of motherfuckers know this much shit. I love it.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite artists. But yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like I'm not saying that some of it doesn't really come from Morris Day, but it's a little bit of a mix. I do think that Prince had this side, and and I think at this point he had this plan for a more racially integrated band. Kind of like Sly and the Family Stone. And,
right. Well, he's always said that was an inspiration with Sly and the Family Stone.
And he knew he was going to be incorporating rock and pop and new wave, and that he was going to be bringing in a white audience. Like that was always I think from Dirty Mind on, that was kind of the game plan leading up to.
But he had that side though, and
I think Morris Day, I think he's like, okay, the time that will be my black side. Like this is just the stuff for the R&B charts. Right. This is the black side. This is the kind of stuff I'm leaving behind a little bit, but I still kind of want to do. And that's what I kind of feel like. I feel like the time is like Prince's black side, and then the Revolution was his more eclectic side. And then if you notice, when the Revolution disbands, he slowly but surely starts bringing back. And the time's no longer around. Once you get into like Diamond and Pearls and stuff like that, he's back a little of that black side.
Well, I'll tell you what, one that I think is like a perfect merge of Prince and Morris Day is Bob George. Black album.
Yeah.
Ain't that a bitch?
That's
I love that shit.
Well, the Black Album itself. And look,
for somebody who don't like TV dinners, we sure do eat a lot of those motherfuckers.
So, he had this pimp side, and I think he expressed himself. Like, to me, the Time records, those first three Time albums, and there's no disrespect to Morris Day, but I feel that they are also Prince albums, not just because he's...
Oh, fuck yeah.
He's literally playing on all the songs, but I feel they are an expression of another part of himself that he started to not express quite as much on the Revolution era records. And I feel like the first Time album, which was recorded I think a few months after this, you stated, I feel like not enough people listen to that album because I love the Time album, and that's very new wave. Cool. After high school, that's very new wavy, and it sounds like another side of Dirty Mind. Like almost you could put them together and they could be like a double album. So if you want to have a recommendation, definitely check out it's just self-titled. The Time.
Oh, exactly. Like fucking Prince and the Revolution was like Dearly Beloved, and where the Time was like Nogo. It's like there was that great mix of the two sides. I shouldn't say two sides, but multiple sides of Prince.
One other track I just want to mention, because it was recorded during these sessions and was a single, and you and I probably both heard it for the first time as part of that Hits B-Sides collection, was the song Gotta Stop Messing Around. And he played it during the tour, of Dirty Mind. He was playing it. And in the UK, apparently, it was an A-side single, whereas in America, it was just a B-side. But that's also a great track, and that definitely has that mixture of the hard funk with the new wave.
I can see why it was left off the album, but I still like it.
Apparently about masturbation or not. You shouldn't be masturbating. So
fuck that shit.
Yeah, but maybe it's ultimately Dirty Mind wasn't going to be about jerking off. So I got left off.
Let me ask you, as a hardcore Prince fan, name me 2 albums that like you initially didn't get, then you ended up like, holy fuck, I love this album.
Diamond and Pearls. I know it was a big hit and kind of a comeback for him. Unlike you, I was not totally into the New Jack Swing stuff while it was happening. I liked a little like Janet Jackson, who was kind of going in that direction a little bit at that point. I consider like Rhythm Nation to have a little element of New Jack Swing to it. And even some crossover hip hop like LL Cool J and stuff like that. But I wasn't deep enough into black music and R&B to fully appreciate that album. All I knew is like the horns and different kinds of singing. I'm still not a big fan of that rapper in the new power generation.
Yeah,
I mean, Prince himself, I think, is a better rapper. So I was like, you hear like Prince like on Irresistible Bitch. He's like rapping back then. And for the majority of My Name is Prince, Prince is rapping, and he sounds much cooler. So I was like, I don't know why you feel you need this guy that comes in and throws in a few dumb lines.
That was a weird era for Prince because Prince hated rap. But then once he realized like rap was kind of taken over, he kind of reluctantly, I'm going to do this. But Prince was very anti-rap and anti-sampling and shit like that. But he gave way.
Some of that stuff put me off a little at the time. But a few years later, I was like late 90s when I started to get deeper into funk and start to really go back and listen to old like James Brown records and Sly and the Family Stone and Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, all that stuff. Then I kind of went back to like Diamond and Pearls, and suddenly I thought it was this like amazing, eclectic, interesting soul album. Soul and pop album, like songs like, Money Don't Matter Tonight. So yeah, I grew to love that album. I actually think it's one of his stronger albums now. And the Symbol album too. It's like CD era, like there's too much.
Oh yeah, way too much.
Yeah, I feel if they cut out like 5 songs, the Symbol album would give Diamond and Pearls a run for the money. There's a lot of great shit on it, but it's got too much stuff. I would say, so Diamond and Pearls is probably the one where I had the most drastic change of opinion. From being an album that I didn't like to now I think it's one of his better albums. Musicology, I wasn't like crazy about that album at first, and now it's one of my favorite Prince albums. So that's one that grew on me, definitely. In terms of his 80s stuff, my opinion's probably around the same. Like, I haven't really changed that much. So what about you in that regard?
Oh, definitely. I would say Parade, number 1. Parade's one of my favorites now. But initially when it came out, I was like, I like Kiss and Another Lover, Hole in Your Head. And that was it. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? I was like, what the fuck is Under the Cherry Moon? After I saw Purple Rain. Around the World in a Day was hard to take for me. I mean, I love that album now. But, as a kid, like I was 11 when it came out, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? When I heard Around the World in a Day, I was like, I like Pop Life and Raspberry Beret, and that's it.
You see, because I got into it a little bit later, by that point I was already like a big Doors fan. I hadn't actually gotten into the Beatles yet, but I was into the Doors. So I already kind of had a little bit of a taste for like psychedelic pop rock.
Yeah.
So I think that helped me. So when I listened to like Parade and Around the World in a Day, I immediately kind of got into it because like to me it was like, oh, this is like cool Doors, Carnival kind of pop rock music. Right. So no, I got it, but I can understand back then.
Oh yeah. Back then I was like, what the fuck? But now it's like, God, I listen to Parade, and I was doing that today. I listened to Dirty Mind, getting ready for this, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm going to Parade, and I hear songs like Do You Lie, and I'm like, oh my God, and the vocal melodies from Wendy and Lisa.
Wait, let's save that because we're going to have to do a Parade episode at some time.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so Parade's definitely one I'd turn my opinion on. It's funny you mentioned Diamonds and Pearls, because I still don't like Diamonds and Pearls, other than a handful of songs. But what's funny is what I love. Holy shit, do I love. I still love Get Off. I think Get Off is a fucking masterpiece. Money Don't Matter Tonight still almost brings a tear to my eye every time I listen to it. There's just something so emotional about that song, like lyrically and musically.
Beautiful.
Seriously, makes me want to fucking cry. But then I hear stupid ass shit like Daddy Pop and fucking.
I like Daddy Pop. It's fun.
Oh yeah. See, there's a lot of shit out. Like I'll take the Love Symbol album over that. But I agree with what you said about like too many songs, too overblown, all the fucking
interludes,
Kirstie Alley shit, interludes. But My Name is Prince and fucking God Created Women. I mean, there's some amazing songs on that fucking album. And I distinctly remember, like, when the Love Symbol album came out, like, I was full into metal. And not just metal, but like thrash metal and everything. But I never gave up my love of Prince. So at the same time all my friends are listening to this heavy shit, I'm like, dude, new Prince. You know?
The same way.
But I love all the fucking detours. Now it's like, what's that fucking Jehovah's Witness shit he did? Rainbow Children. There's stuff I love on that, man.
That took a while for me to get into. That's one that I didn't love at first, but it's, it's very jazzy, but I grew to like it.
Yeah, you don't get everything like when it comes out, and that's cool, man. And that's fine, and that's like, that's a big thing I'm going to talk about on the next episode of my podcast, the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast. Because there's a lot of shit about like something I said I liked and then I didn't like. And I'm like, man, shit changes and your tastes change and what you accept and what you don't. And the older I get, I have less tolerance for like stuff that doesn't expand my mind. But I've got all day for some shit that might challenge me and make me think and make me do different shit, And that's what I love is artists like Prince, like Frank Zappa, like Neil Young, and there's many others that, depending on my age and where I'm at in this life, I might not get every era, I'm like, I don't get this right now, but I get it later. That's the beauty of fucking music, though, and either something challenges me or it doesn't, and Prince always challenges me. Do I love every fucking song? No. But do I love the majority of them? Yes. And this was an artist. This was a true guy that just had to get this shit out. And that's what I love about Prince. And just the freedom and the sexuality and the funk and just, it's raw. It's real. It's fucking, I don't know. I love me some fucking Prince.
Yeah.
God damn it.
To love Prince is to love music and to love life.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
I agree.
Well, this has been great. Now, let me just tell people out there a little bit about this man, Ian Wadley, Wadzilla. Very important man in my life. And it's connected to Prince, too. Actually, the very first time I talked about music in a public forum on the internet was actually your show, the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast.
Yeah.
We did the Prince tribute. Sadly, after Prince passed away, you knew that I was someone in the RMCP that was a Prince fan. And you reached out and asked me to be part of it. It was you, me, Mike Sears, brother Mike Sears, shout out. Vincent Kavanaugh, shout out to you, Vincent. Miss you, brother. Also Ken Mills. And it was us. It was us five, and me and Vincent were actually in the same room. We were in LA when we did that. And that was the first time I was on your show, the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast. Yeah. And it was a cathartic experience. It meant a lot to me to talk, connect with other Prince fans and talk about it. And it was the first time I talked about music on the internet. And then I came on, I did a few other episodes with you guys, and I started to get the bug a little bit. I made a few videos here and there. During the pandemic, I started making a lot of videos, and before you know it, I started to be one of these guys that likes to talk about music on the internet, and some people like it when I do that. And it all started with you and your show, you and Ralph Viera, the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast. So that's why I have a YouTube channel. That's why we're doing this now. And so
that's awesome.
So people, if you like my channel and you like my videos, well, it all started with this guy here. He was the first guy that gave.
You're gonna piss off all your fans now. They're gonna go check out our fucking terrible shit.
If you're easily offended, I don't go as I'm not as crude as you guys sometimes.
If you're easily offended, you shouldn't be a Prince fan. No. Prince don't give a fuck.
I get a little more blue on the podcast, our podcast, Rock Over Your Podcast. On YouTube, I do keep it a little cleaner. But hey, if you don't get offended, and especially if you love Dirty Mind, I would like to think you don't get offended. You should definitely check them out. I'll leave a link down below for that last episode where Ian Wadley and Ralph are going head to head on Manowar versus Prince.
Yeah, we fuck your sister on our podcast.
Yeah, man, it was great. Thank you so much, Ian Wadley. Always a pleasure talking music with
you. No, thank you. And I'm so proud of what you've done. And it's like when I first met you, I just knew you as a listener. And then I got to know like what you are as a writer you know, and then you start your own show. You know, you got your own YouTube show, you got a podcast and everything, and it's awesome, man. I love it. And goddamn, through my dumbass shit, you know, you found your voice and you do stuff. That's amazing, dude. That's great. And you know who would love shit like that is Prince. Prince would love you. Like, however you find your voice and do whatever you do, that's a good thing, man.
Yeah, and it's Ian Wadley's the guy who told me to embrace my Italian heritage and say my name.
Yeah.
Because if you go back in my very first YouTube video, I say Canastraci, and Ian's like, "What's that Canastraci bullshit? Say Canastraci."
Yeah.
That's how they say it in the old country.
Yeah.
And it pops more. That's the thing. It does pop more. And
exactly.
I fully embrace my wappiness thanks to Ian Wadley.
Exactly. Exactly. You're half black, so you can do a whole lot of other shit and still not go to jail. Have fun with it, you know?
That's why I'm well endowed and funky. There you go.
I love you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on your show, man.
All right. Love you too, brother. Peace out.
All right.